Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. Today, we have a special guest, Carter Lee. Carter is a producer, educator, composer, bassist. He is the head of community at Soundfly and the co-host of Themes and Variations, a really awesome podcast about music, really, and there's different topics every time. I got the pleasure to record one with him just recently. That'll be coming out soon. He has degrees in musical performance from MacEwan University and Berklee College. We have a lot of things in common, as we found out when we spoke. Seems like similar tastes in music, similar backgrounds growing up with music. We are both proud owners of Shetland sheepdogs. I even wore my shirt for you today.
No, that is so good. I didn't even know. I mean, your shirt game is so. I know I'm like jumping the gun here a little bit, but the duck hunt shirt that you had when we recorded, Mihei and I were like, man, Brian's got the best shirts based on one, but the best Sheltie dad for obviously listeners that can't see it. It's fantastic.
I don't have a lot of shirts, but I do like the ones I have. My problem with shirts is I get like emotionally attached to them, and then I wind up keeping them way too long.
Yeah, you get the one T-shirt that somebody compliments you on. It's like, thanks. I mean, I didn't make it, but I'll take the compliment. And then you just wear it all the time, and it becomes that special shirt for sure.
I didn't make it. That's how I feel when people say I have a beautiful dog. It's like, thank you, I guess. Like,
thank you.
I didn't have a lot to do with that, but I'll take the credit. Mm-hmm. But it's good to have you, man. Welcome back, welcome to this show. It's good to speak to you again.
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, I feel like we've known each other longer than we have, at least a little bit, and that's kind of what happens out of, I think, discussions through music. That absolutely happened when we tracked on Monday for our show, and just kind of getting to know you and knowing your background in music, and also getting to know you through this show that I'm on currently. So it's great to be here with you, and stoked to see what we get into today. Yeah,
man. It seems like we got some like kindred spirit things going on. So, it's fun to dive in. I had a great time on your show, Themes and Variations. I think anyone that hasn't heard of it should really check it out. I got hooked when I listened to the episode on Misheard song lyrics that you guys did. That was a lot of fun because that always happens, where you think it says one thing and then you find out you were totally off.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what song I picked for that theme, and then I'm now hitting me now, and that I actually had a pretty embarrassing pick with Pinball Wizard, and not many people miss hearing that, but of course I heard the lyric "sure plays a mean pinball is sure pleased to meet you all," and got called out pretty heavily. It is one of those things we try to do that. Like the show is all about getting different perspectives in music, and so like. Obviously with that episode, what you might have as a misheard lyric, and I gotta ask, like, do you have any songs that you famously kind of misheard and kind of stuck with you forever?
Oh yeah, when I was, I think, in like fourth grade, "We Didn't Start the Fire" by Billy Joel was like my favorite song. It was like one of my first favorite songs, and then that came out, and I can remember like listening to that song, like trying to understand why I liked it. Like I didn't understand why I liked this song so much, but because he's speaking so much about historical events that I knew nothing about. When he says Belgians in the Congo, I thought he said Mel Gibson in a condo. That seemed perfectly normal to me.
Which is a pretty great lyric, really. Yeah. Oh my God. As to the why, I mean, you grew up on Long Island, right?
Yeah.
I think I remember. So like,
Billy
there's
Joel
why
land.
you love Billy Joel. Yeah. So I don't think you had a choice. Basically, it was born into you for sure. But yeah, that's the whole thing. Is like we try to we have different amazing guests like yourself on, and people are gonna like we kind of work a little bit to find a theme that you'd want to talk about, because that's the best, is when you're talking about stuff that you're excited to chat about, and we just try and get different perspectives on music, and what you might think for misheard lyrics, or like we did mysterious songs from the first album I ever bought was actually our first episode, which was so fun. And just gets you to think, like it brings up those feelings of nostalgia with music, and just those instant feelings of memory of like, oh yeah, I remember when I first heard this song. And that's kind of the discussions that we're trying to bring up. And I think we definitely got into that on Monday. We talked about songs you can recognize in the first 5 seconds, which one of my favorite themes. So I'm so grateful that you picked it. And yeah, folks, I mean, that won't come out on September 22nd. So you can mark your calendars. You can hear Brian if you want to know what was Brian's song that he recognized in the first 5 seconds. You'll get to hear it. We go in pretty good. We actually almost picked the same song too, which was awesome.
Really funny. Yeah, I was almost about to pick the song you picked, and I just changed my mind based on my current musical kick of late. I wanted to honor that. So
yeah, yep. That's what I do all the time too. I mean, whatever the theme is, first and foremost, I got to love the song. Of course, maybe we'll have a theme that we try. We haven't done any themes where it's like songs I really hate or whatever. Like we haven't done that. Everything kind of skews a little bit positive, which isn't necessarily what I do in like my personal life. Like I would, there's plenty, like I've been dying to find a way to get some Garth Brooks, Chris Gaines era tracks on the podcast and talk about that. Those songs
Alter
are very
egos,
hard to come by.
Like
exactly. So
egos, maybe. Yeah.
I have that in mind, but I have to find the Chris Gaines album. They're not online anymore. I used to live in Los Angeles, and I went to Amoeba because I was trying to start a separate podcast where we were going to look at records that maybe weren't great. It was like the how did this get made of music, basically, and I found there were 3 copies of the Chris Gaines album, and I bought all 3 of them at Amoeba, and I don't have them anymore.
Really?
So,
wow.
Lost to the sands of time. So I'm gonna have to find them.
He doesn't stream anything, right?
You know what? I thought that was just a Chris Gaines thing because he wanted to clearly erase it from history. But now that you mention, I don't know if Garth Brooks streams anything. There's a good chance that he doesn't. Yeah, he might be one of the last holdouts of streaming from the early Napster.
Yeah, I think she said that he doesn't have anything online. It was a very exciting day for her when like the Def Leppard stuff got online.
Of course, as it was for all of us.
Right,
of course.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
man.
It's a great show. It's a lot of fun. I think it's just such a cool idea, and there's endless material to talk about.
Yeah.
I think I was talking to a buddy of mine about the podcast just yesterday, and I think there's something cool about how specific it is. If we were to talk about like one artist or even just one album, maybe it's not. You just have to gloss over a lot of it, but when you get to one song and really dive into it for like, I think we spent about 20 minutes per song that we spoke about. It's really nice to just dig in and talk about the tiniest little intricacies.
Yeah, it I mean, it's been super illuminating for me, again, to hear all the different perspectives on, like, you coming from a production background and mindset and talking about your track, like that I like, oh yeah, I didn't know that about that song. And like, there's so many things that come up with that because of it's marrying incredible guests with songs that they love, and getting a lot of people with some remarkable backgrounds in music. I've been really fortunate to talk to so many different people already. We've been doing the show for a year now, and hope to continue just to be able to grow it and continue to talk to amazing people and get their perspectives on these songs. But yeah, diving into one track, it's fun. Like it feels like it takes me a little bit back to, I was in a wedding band when I lived in New York, and it would be like, you get 40 songs, and I remember the first couple gigs I did, maybe I knew 10 of them. So you have to learn, like, okay, you've got 3 days to learn 30 songs really deeply. So those skills like certainly translate into how, like, I'm less analytical sometimes about the songs that we talk about. I still love theory, and I try to touch on that stuff because at the end of the day, and you asked me before we came on, like, playing music on the podcast, we do play clips. The podcast has to be educational at the end of the day. So we do want to share, okay, this is some of the analysis to it. This is maybe what's going on in the production and things, which does lead us into fair use category and being able to play those little snippets of songs on our podcast so we can really hammer home the points we're talking about. But yeah, bringing those skills of like learning a bunch of songs in a short amount of time to this, because a whack of notes for whatever song. And there's songs I've listened to for years and years and years. They're like, oh, I didn't know that about this track, because you dive in and find some things out. Lyrically, I am not very adept at deciphering meaning in words, which I think a lot of artists would prefer to have it that way, right? I think it's weird for them to be like told what their song means, but I feel like doing the shows maybe more inclined to listen to lyrics and stuff, because I never was. But yeah, it's been a fantastic journey so far for me, and I just can't wait to keep it going.
Yeah, I was thinking about that a little bit when we were talking about the Misheard lyrics, and you get your own like meaning, and one thing that really jumped out at me when I was studying like English literature to become an English teacher, we read a lot of criticism on literature. And one day I'm just reading something, and it was like after reading all these different criticisms, and I'm just like, you know what? You can kind of interpret anything any way you want.
Yeah.
You refer, as long as they like referred to the text and gave you the examples, it just seemed like people were interpreting things however they wanted. And once it comes out of the writer or the artist, it's almost like fair game to be taken however the listener wants. And like the meaning is somewhere between the two parties. And it's, now I'm thinking about it too, I think that's probably why like there's so much drama on the internet sometimes, where people say one thing, it's taken out of context and reinterpreted, and sometimes people get in trouble for it. Sometimes it's just seen totally not the way it was intended to be seen. But I always thought that was like the magic and the beauty of art, is that somebody can put out one idea, one song, and you might just take it as a metaphor for something in your life, and it just takes on new meaning. And there have been songs. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. There have been songs that like misheard the lyrics on, and when I heard the real lyrics, I was like, oh no, like I kind of like the way I had it. There's actually one comes to mind. There's an Iron and Wine song called "Birds Stealing Bread." It's a beautiful song off of I forget the name of the album right now. Creek Drank the Cradle, I think. And he says, like, do you tell me, baby, do you carry, I think he says, do you carry the words around like a key or change? And I always thought he said like a key or chain, meaning like, is it a key to like unlock something, or is it a chain to like hold you back? I just thought that was like a great line. And then when I found the real line, I was like, oh, I'm just going to keep it my way,
It's more, I guess, relatable. Keys and change are always in my pocket, of course, but I don't carry a chain. I certainly did. I was this is such an aside, but I don't know if this swept I remember just being in the 4th grade, everybody had chains on their wall.
Yep.
It's like literally everybody. Yeah, so that was probably the last time that lyric was applicable to me, but... oh man.
Yeah. I think I went through that a little bit too, listening to like I think it was like watching Green Day. It's like
a lot of Green Day.
A young teen. And they had them through. Okay. That's cool. They got kind of ridiculous too after a while. And I never went past like the normal length, but there were people that had them like down to their knee and back up, and like actual chains.
There were kids, and I'm not going to say I was one of them. I might have been, I might not, but kids going to pet stores and buying like the dog like choke collars and adding them to their chain to lengthen them out a little bit. So, man, I didn't think we were going to get into that today, but I'm glad that we did.
I don't think I've thought about that since then.
Yeah, that was buried definitely for sure, but it's good to bring it back up.
Yeah, that stuff happened, guys. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about Soundfly, because this is all connected with the podcast. I guess the podcast is part of the world of Soundfly, really. Soundfly has like a lot of cool courses, a lot of teachers that I've known, some I've had on the podcast, even Ethan Hine, Claire Marie Lynn. And I guess the blog is really cool too. A lot of great articles about just various topics in songwriting and producing. So maybe I can ask you about that a little.
Of course, yeah. I mean, anything you want to know. I mean, I got to shout out the blog Flypaper, of course. Jeremy Young is our editor in chief of that. He does a lot of other stuff. Like we are a small team at Soundfly, so we all wear a lot of hats. And one of my hats is the podcast, and one of Jeremy's is the blog. So we do a lot of different things to try and kind of, it's brand awareness, but we want people to kind of get to know us a little bit. That's why the podcast started. We were thinking like, people come to the site and they can read our mission statement. They can read everything about it, which I won't read verbatim to you right now, but I can certainly tell you what we're about. But they don't get to know us really very well, right? So having a longer form thing where you can kind of get to know myself and Mahea, who co-hosts a ton of episodes and also works at Soundfly, is also my wife, coincidentally. I don't know if it's coincidental, but that's just something to add in there. But yeah, the pod exists in a lot because we wanted to do one. We hadn't found the right avenue to do one. And we did find it with the theme and everything that we do around the podcast. We did a lot of different demos to come to that. But really, it was like we want people to get to know us a little bit. I love the people I work with. I really do. It's a small team. They all have such diverse backgrounds in music and in life. And every week I get to talk to these people and get new insights on music and things. So I wanted to have those same discussions. And that's where the pod comes in relation to Soundfly. Really what we do is Soundfly. It is a music education company. So a lot of what we do is our courses. We have a ton of courses. You mentioned Claire Marie Lynn with our Ableton course. Ethan Hine has a couple of theory-based courses. And Ethan's just recently been on our show. What a mind that guy has. Oh my God, just unbelievable. We recently did a course with Kimbra. That experience was unbelievable. She was such a joy to work with, and her course, I think, is one of the proudest moments I've had as a musician, like in my music career for sure, even beyond just what we've done at Soundfly. We just put a course out with RJD2, again, just like the sweetest guy ever. And his course is like, I love hip hop, and I get into a lot of my music making is hip hop and jazz based, but more as a composer. I have to buy an MPC now, having watched him just like work through how he samples and chops stuff up. That was just amazing. We've got a course coming out with Kiefer soon, this remarkable Stone's Throw artist who's an LA based pianist and beat maker, and just that gets into some more harmony and stuff. So that's coming out, I think, in October. And then we've got some other exciting guest artists, not even guest artists, just artists that we're making courses with coming up. So we do a lot of courses. We try to make courses for people that can round out their education a little bit. I know you're involved with Berklee. I myself am a graduate of Berklee. We're not trying to necessarily like disrupt traditional music education or whatever. We're just trying to offer what we view as a really great active way to learn music. The other side of what we do is mentorship. So people come to us with these random goals in music. Like some of my favorites are, I have these songs and I'd like to put together an EP. So maybe it's in mixing, maybe it's in production, maybe it's in songwriting, lyric writing, maybe it's composition. Anything you could try to want to learn, we then pair you with somebody on our mentorship team who is maybe a few steps ahead of you on that path and on that journey. And all of a sudden you work with them for, a month or a month and a half, and your skills are that much further along. You have that EP done. Your mix is something you're much more proud of. That's where the real true active learning comes in. Our CEO, Ian, and his philosophy with learning, he is one of those people that, okay, I don't know how to do that. I'm just going to learn. I'm just going to learn everything I possibly can. And that served him, I think, very well as an entrepreneur. It served us very well as a company in terms of our team being very small. We have to have that spirit. It's like, hey, I got to learn, like with the podcast, I'd never done one. I got to learn how to do that. You got to learn how to use loopback. You got to learn how to, book guests, how to hold conversation, like things like that, how to edit and mix and produce. And we just go out and learn those things and then dispel that. That being said, when it comes to music, we all are very well versed. There's a lot of degrees on the team in music, and that's something that we kind of have in the bag, but we're trying to find more creative ways to get that knowledge out to the people.
Hey, that's cool. I mean, those are the kind of people you want to learn from, the people that are going to go learn and that know how to learn, that's a skill in itself, like knowing how to learn. And I think it's great that that's the spirit. And it's cool you did that with the podcast. I mean, the same thing I did. I didn't,
Yeah, of course.
I didn't know
Yeah.
anything I've done, I guess, really. I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know how much I didn't know until I was halfway in. And then you realize how much you don't know. Sometimes it's good that you don't know what you don't know in the beginning.
Yeah.
And
just start. I mean, that's with everything, right? I was thinking today, for whatever reason, like how I got started playing bass, and I was 16, and my dad was a bass player, and we had a bass at home. I never picked it up. I always wanted to play guitar. I wanted to be like you, starting to play guitar, right? Like that's the instrument that you get hooked on and excited about, not the bass. But I remember being 16, and all my friends had started playing guitar, and I was always thinking like, okay, he sounds great, but it's been a year of him. I don't have a year. I'm already 16 years old. It's like, dude, like that is so dumb. Like just start whatever it is you want to do. Just start. Which is, I mean, that's weird. I don't know how, like particularly now in the state of living that we are in, you have to start. Like there's nothing that you can do. Like there's no other options. I think the ulterior is that you don't grow, right? That's the alternative. And, I am definitely indebted to my parents and people around me that had that same spirit as well. So yeah, just start.
Yeah, I mean, we all know how fast time flies, right? So if you started today at whatever it is, pretty soon it'll be a year from now.
Yeah, I have goals. Start of the pandemic, which I've been not good about. Like on the other side of it, where it's like I'm going to learn to do this. And then a month goes by and I have been focused on it. But now I'm thinking of like, what were the things I left on the shelf that I need to pick up? Because I would be 17 months ahead of where I am now. And so today, maybe, I'll start something back up.
Today is the only day you can start.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I saw some kind of meme online that was like, every day I go to bed thinking like, tomorrow I'm going to start all of these new habits and lifestyle changes that I've never been able to do.
No, that's true. And that's true because I think it's overwhelming. I mean, there's a whole industry of like, if you did everything that you're only supposed to do once a day, like there's no time for that. It's like you have to, I do think exercise, of course, is incredibly important. So like an hour a day of that is fine. But like, you also got to read, you got to meditate. This is, and I do that from time to time, but like you got to learn how to cook something new. You got to start a new TV show. You got to pick up a new book. You got to start a new song. Like this is, you have to pick your spots and pick your moments, I think for sure. And pick one thing to focus on and grow and get better at. And try to shut off that's like the Instagram side of like the inspirational Instagram quotes of like, I did this every day and now look at me. It's like that. I don't know. Like that's maybe not for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's how things get done. In fact, we're recording an album with the band I'm in, and yesterday we got together, and it's like, all right, let's go down. It's the only way this thing gets done.
Yeah,
it's
love that.
And it's always scary. There's like like getting started is the hardest part, but it's, we decided yesterday, we had like a low hanging fruit. We're doing background vocals. So it was like, all right, we know we're going to be able to do this one pretty easy. So let's boost our confidence with that, warm up with that. And once we got going, it's like, by the time it was time to end, we still wanted to keep going. We're excited, and
yeah, of course.
I find that all the time, and I sometimes can fool myself into getting going by just saying, all right, just 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. I can quit after 5 minutes. And almost every time I find something inspiring or exciting and can carry through. But it is just like getting that like boulder moving. That initial push is the hardest.
Yeah, we're too conditioned now, I think, to be afraid of failure. I certainly had that so many times. Being able to perform in some awesome situations, I think, helped me get through that a little bit, because you will make mistakes in front of a lot of people, and it's like, it's not the end of the world. That's fine. Like that's living with less, with abandon, I think, a little bit, and being able to make mistakes and fail in everything that you're going to do, because you absolutely are going to fail in certain respects, and you just got to be cool with that. Like that's totally fine. I mean, there's different degrees. Of course, if I was a heart surgeon and failing all the time, that would be a serious issue. But if I'm just a bass player and I'm making some mistakes in my note choices, you can learn to navigate that and be fine, and just learn that it's totally fine to make mistakes, man. There's a lot of joy in that. You kind of let go of, like, I definitely had that in music school. Like, I was so like afraid to mess up in front of people that I really respected, and that probably kept me from starting certain things. But just got to start, and you got to be comfortable with making mistakes, because we all make them all the time.
That's something I've heard from people with the music school background, the more like formal education, because I have the exact opposite. I didn't play in band in high school or anything. I took guitar lessons and played in sloppy rock bands, so I remember learning, like, we would like play in front of people, and I like maybe missed a chord somewhere, and that was like all I could think about. And then I realized no one even knew I did it.
Nobody noticed. Yeah.
No one noticed. Yeah. I mean, I guess if you do that all the time, they compound, and then it becomes obvious. But, the little things that happen, like, people don't catch. But the music school perspective is not that way. When I got into college, I started taking electives wherever I could in music. And for one course early on, it was one of the assignments was to go to these recitals, and they were in these like really nice little theaters, really acoustically sound, and it'd be like one person sitting there on a cello and like people with notebooks, and I just I was like, this is scary. I was afraid to like scratch my chin, because it would be too loud. It was really tense, and the musicians were insanely good, like phenomenal. It was beautiful, but and I'm thinking, like, how could they be nervous about this? Like, they're gonna nail it, but it's that level of scrutiny, and I think what you're saying, though, I have come across in some of those players when they come to jam, they're like really, really critical. And meanwhile, I'm just sitting there with like my mouth on the floor. I can't believe how nice it sounds. There's so much pressure in those situations.
There is. I did do recitals like that, which is to me now so silly to do them on electric bass. That feels like the wrong instrument for that.
Not
but
quite the solo
I remember
instrument.
a part of. Oh my God, yeah. The amount of shedding for that stuff was a ton. We had these things called scale juries at MacEwan, and the first couple ones, there were these. It was a small school, and there's these rumors going around that like if you failed your scale jury, you were kicked out of school, like you were done. So your entire, and to me, I was going to MacEwan because I knew I wanted to go to Berklee, and it turns out like MacEwan was amazing, incredible experience for me. But I was like, I had this whole career path mapped out, which of course changed because I was like 19 and had no idea. Like, you can't map your life out like that. But I just was like, oh my God, I have to, like, I was so nervous. Practice to the point of probably a detriment where tendonitis started to creep in and stuff. But like, the first one I did, I remember there were two professors, and one was my bass professor, who I absolutely like looked up to and had so much respect for. And I had to play the Bach, the prelude to the first cello suite in G major, and a bunch of scales too. And it's just you in a room in front of these two like incredible musicians, and they're listening for just like one note to be a little bit off, or your phrasing to be a little bit off, and things like that. And got through it and felt, I think once you get through something like that, like for me, it had the opposite than maybe some of the folks you're talking about, where I felt like just relieved, and that if I can do that and get through that, then I can play in any situation, because that was the most stressful. Even just playing for two people who are judging literally every single note that you're playing, and you're the only one playing, was like, when you got through it, it felt so good. And then all of the other things I had to do performance wise were kind of cake compared to that, for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting mindset to perform in front of, like, let's listen for anything wrong. I think you get that if you have a song that you present to somebody, you're working on a song recording, and you're like, it's not done yet. What do you think? It makes that person go into like, all right, what's wrong with this song here?
Which you also like. I've done that. Don't do that. Just play. And if you don't feel ready to share the song with somebody, then maybe hold back a little bit. But if you give somebody preconceived like this isn't going to sound great, they're probably going to love it anyways. Like, and then just give you some pointers on like, this is how it can be better in my opinion, and so on and so forth. But like, if you already color it with, this isn't great, but I want to play it for you anyways, like that, like just get some raw feedback, and you will get better from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's setting you up for. And when we talked about on the podcast on your show, we came up with the topic of like style and personality, because that's part of what makes music identifiable. I think that can very easily be looked at as flaw. It can be an imperfection that is a person's style that makes them, exciting as an artist. But when you put it out there as like, what's wrong with this? It could very easily be like, well, the way your voice cracked there wasn't so cool. That's a mistake, even though it might be like emotion. So it's easy to lose that.
Might make the track. It might, in a recording sense, if you have something that is not particularly polished, but there's just maybe a breath made it into a performance where you'd otherwise want to cut, or like something you didn't mean to play on your instrument, but it made it in. Like, I love music like that. I love music that has atmosphere and has personality to it, and has. We just did it. Recorded an episode. I think our next one that's coming out actually is on songs that do something incorrectly. So it's like a song that, like, by traditional standards is like, you shouldn't do that. That's wrong. And it's like, no, these songs are so beautiful because they do something different, and they make the listening experience even that much more visceral. So when you can have one of my favorite bands, and this is kind of an aside, but I know you do found sound stuff where you're with your packs, where you're making all these incredible packs with sounds that you're creating and curating. Tennyson is this group who actually is also from my hometown of Edmonton, Alberta. I got to shout it out because it doesn't get shouted out very much, of course. But they do a lot of found sound stuff. That one of my favorite tracks, Lay By, where they put the sound of a car alarm, if you haven't put your seatbelt on, and that's just dinging. And they use that as the basis for the entire beat. Now, that's different than leaving like mistakes in because it's intentional, but it's the same kind of feeling I get listening to that when there are things that are maybe quote unquote mistakes. And found sounds, you have this environment that is created in your song that you otherwise wouldn't have for your listeners to explore. So stuff's great.
We do projects like that in my Berklee sampling class, and found sounds, fine stuff. And I find myself always commenting on the natural reverb you wind up getting with those sounds. Yeah. Like, you close the lid of your cabinet and the kitchen is a room, it's a space. Because so much in the computer, especially if you're doing like electronic music, it's just pure, naked, I guess is the word. There's nothing there. It's sterile. That's the word I'm looking for. If you record on tape and you have a guitar, you're always getting the sound of the amplifier buzzing, or just the room the acoustic guitar is in. But sometimes when you're doing like soft synths or samples, they don't have any atmosphere to them. And I love found sounds for that, where they just have the sound of the room. Like, oh, you were in that kitchen, and like, oh, the fact, the shower door, it has the bathroom reverb in there. Yeah. And it just puts the music in a place.
Yeah. And a listener might not hear that in the sound design, but they'll feel something. It's maybe something intangible that you can't quite exactly. Like, there's something else that we're picking up, I think, on a different level when we're listening to music like that.
Yeah, I mean, the sound of like rooms and the world, I think, is really important, and it's a great thing you can throw into your music if you're not recording like instruments that are acoustic with microphones and things like that. You know, we did some tracks with acoustic guitars, and purposely we just put the one mic in between two guitars, and it was just great. Like, it just, when you take it out, it sounds like the world got sucked away. You know, like you're in space. And then when you put it back in, you don't hardly even hear the acoustic guitars, but they're just there provided. It's like grass instead of cement. Just like
you get the fingers, strings, and the wood, right? And that sound to me is awesome. I love hearing like you hear the performance. You know, you don't just hear the notes, but you hear like what goes into the notes and creates the notes. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. Well, that sounds like a good episode. I look forward to that. I love when things are wrong in the right way.
For sure.
You know, that's kind of magical. That's like the cool thing about music. I'm sure you, as someone that's like really in depth with theory and like how it all works, there's still that magical part that almost doesn't. Maybe you can find a theoretical explanation, but there's always things that just like, I can't believe that works.
Yeah, and that's even on a level that, I mean, like, you could touch on the overtone series and stuff like that, which is, you know, like you're playing one note, but there are other things at play. There are other molecules being moved, right? And that's really what we're doing. We're moving air, right, with music. And there is, like, even in a theoretical sense, there are things that are unexplained. Is like, why does the same, I have seen this explained, but I don't know the explanation for it, but like, why is the same major 7 chord in one key, why does it feel brighter even though it's the exact same voicing in a different key? And keys can have different impacts even though you're playing the exact same quality of chord, things like that. So like that to me is on another level that is I'd like to kind of think of as the more ethereal magic in music, at least from a theoretical side of things.
I think you get that a lot in guitar because you got sometimes open strings and fretted strings, and even though it's the same note, and even playing the same note on a different string, sometimes it's just like it just doesn't have that thing that it has over here.
Certain, like with the bass, for sure, there are parts where I'll play differently, because if I'm playing a D on the 12th fret of the D string instead of the 7th fret of the G string, it's going to sound warmer and fatter because the string is thicker, and like just where I am in the neck, it's going to sing a little bit more. And that is something, I mean, players like Pino Palladino, all bass players really should get into that, but like, not every note is the same, certainly on a fretted instrument. And it's something you get to, like, you have to think he really stands out on the bass. Like, why is that note just, it feels thinner, obviously, because the gauge is thinner, but it just sounds it doesn't have the same weight, doesn't sustain quite as long. These are fractions, but the more you play an instrument, the more in tune you become with those little tiny, tiny things and intricacies of it that can make your playing that much better when you make those little adjustments.
I think the way I play the bass, I could probably get away without a G string altogether.
I used to tune E to C a lot of times. Like, I had a high C string because players that I was into were more like fusiony, and this is like peak level me playing jazz stuff. Like that's what all I wanted to do. And that string is awesome, again, for open tuning and pedal tone stuff, and you can just kind of pedal stuff around, play these awesome chords, and you have much more range. So when you're transcribing a piano or horn or guitar solo, as I was doing a lot of the time, was great. But then I just consistently, there'd be dead spots on the note, and there's nothing you can really do about that, just because it's math, which is not something I'm strong at all. But you're going to find like dead spots, particularly on the C string, and I just couldn't do it anymore. It's like, I want to have every note available to me at every time, and it's just too thin. So got rid of it. Just a 4-string classic bass player now. So
yeah, cool. Do you have a favorite bass of yours? What do you like to play?
I have a favorite. My dad actually handed me down a 63 Fender Jazz when I was like 16. So it was his first bass. It was my first bass. We got it refinished. So that's my favorite. I did when I was a member of the Marias, we got to work with Fender a little bit. So I did get they did a reissue of all these vintage P basses and J basses, and I picked out this P that is the same way that they used to make them in the 60s, but they've updated it, and that's a favorite of mine. That played that, I mean, countless shows, and it's still just such a workhorse. And so I have a P bass and a J bass that I love, and that's pretty much the gist of it. I've thought about getting a 6-string again. I love Thundercat, and I want to explore, like, because that range is just so cool, and you can play incredible voicings and chords that I cannot play on a 4-string bass. So I've thought about it a little bit. I haven't done it yet, but it's there's a chance. I pick one of these up one of these days for sure.
It made me think of a topic for your show, like artists that inspire like instruments, like a 6-string bass like Thundercat. I think they play 6-string, right?
Yeah. Predominantly, yeah.
Like,
I love that.
I've never personally had any desire or use for that kind of bass, the wide fretboard, and just the way I play. I'm good with the 4, maybe even just 3, as I said. It's
like a surfboard. I had a 6-string Ken Smith, and I like jacked my back up playing that thing because it's so heavy and huge. I do miss it and the things that you can do on it, but yeah, it's also just like ergonomically not very conducive to playing in instruments. It's not comfortable. Yeah.
But yeah, having done your show, I've been like, my mind has been like in this zone of like, what would be cool episodes? 'Cause you asked me if I had any ideas. That could be fun. Like artists that like kind of like bring an instrument, inspire someone to play an instrument.
Love that. I absolutely love that. I'm reminded of, I can't remember. I think it's Christopher Carpenter or something. Who it's called like the revolutionary organ or something that he tours with. You got to see this organ. I'll send you a pic of it or video. It's like the most insane looking organ that he just tours with and plays like these crazy Bach pieces and classical pieces on. Or that is probably the most grandiose instrument that's been created for one person. I mean, there's Liberace's piano, I'm sure too, it fits up there. And there's so many things. I mean, you could do a whole thing with Fender and their Strats and basses, of course. But I love that. I mean, the idea is written down, and we'll definitely have to do that.
Or even like lately too, like a lot of vintage gear has been like brought back, like 4-track tape recorders. There was a little while there where you can get them for nothing, and then people started doing like ambient looping on it, and boom, like now they're more expensive than they ever were when they first came out.
Thank artists like I think Mac DeMarco for that. You do like an indie record on a 4-track and it like sells 1 million copies. Like, okay, the cat's out of the bag now. Yeah.
Right. eBay prices shoot up.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, having degrees in musical performance. I wanted to just kind of pick your brain, I guess, a little bit about musical performance. Now, maybe I'm misunderstanding exactly what that entails, but I'm guessing this has to do, how does this affect, say, the way you go on stage? Like, what do you see in like maybe other artists, other bands playing that are like no-nos or like interesting things or things you like to bring to the stage?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I think that I'm just trying to think of where to start. In terms of my degree being in performance, it's a weird thing to major in for sure. I did performance because I had studied performance at MacEwan, and then I transferred into Berklee, and it was a very clear path to finish my degree in music. And I was performing, and I wanted to perform, but it's a little too ethereal to me to go out and get a degree in. In hindsight, I'm glad that I did. But there was the CWP major, which Mahea, my wife, has done a contemporary writing and production. Now looking back in hindsight, it's like maybe I should have done that because I loved getting. I had to teach myself production outside of school. So with that disclaimer, just in terms of, because it did teach me how to play, but like the actual art of performing and like how to interact with an audience, that's tough. I think the one thing I see, and it's unavoidable if it's like your first big festival or show, and maybe it's just when you start the first song and you can ease into it, but just a rigidness of like everything must be perfect. And most of my recent experience was when I was in the Marias for several years, and Josh, the drummer, and I, we would know when we would make a mistake, but we would laugh. We would laugh it off. It was funny, and we'd even like high five each other in between. And it's just like that. It doesn't matter. We'd be playing. I remember we're playing Coachella, and like there'd be a mistake, and it's like whatever. Like it doesn't, because again, it goes back. Like people don't know that you're really making a mistake. They will know if you are looking, like scowling at the guitar player because he made a mistake, or so that's one thing that I see. That you pick up on, and that puts me off when I'm in the audience, when it's another band member basically drawing attention to somebody's mistake. Like you certainly don't need to do that. Beyond that, I think it's just like other things that I see. One thing I will say, this is weird, but in performance, is that if you're going to do a cover, I think we might even talked about this on Monday, but if you're going to do a cover, playing it straight down the exact way that the artist recorded it and intended it, to me, is a bit of a put off. I think at first, when you first hear it, you're like, that's awesome. I love that song. But then after 30 seconds, you're like, I would just rather hear the original artist play it, and I'd rather listen to the record. However, when you disguise a cover, you change the harmony a little bit, you change the groove, the instrumentation. I love that. You're bringing your artistry to a cover and to a song. You maybe keep the melody the same, but then you're kind of disguising a little bit. It's a little bit of sleight of hand, and then it becomes revealed like, oh, that's that song, that's that cover. Oh my God, I love this. This is so great that you guys did your own interpretation of it. So in performance, like those are a couple things. It's weird though too. It's hard to talk about now. I haven't seen a show in 2 years, and I haven't played one in as long. So it's tough. I think also just like you can adapt, use the size of room that you're in. If you're in a smaller room, really engage with your audience. There's no fourth wall there when like it's somebody's 2 feet in front of you. It doesn't have to be a perfect set. I know I'm like, I didn't think I was gonna have anything to say, and it feels like I'm this curmudgeon-y old performer. It's like I do think that one thing, particularly in a smaller venue, that might just be me, but some sets can run on too long. And in my opinion, it's like, dude, give me 40 minutes of your best stuff. Not an hour of, if I didn't get you in the first 40, like here's a bunch of other songs I'm going to play, a bunch of other songs I'm going to play. Just give me 40 minutes of your best stuff. So at the end of it, I'm feeling like, yeah, I'd go and listen to more of that. Cliche, leave them wanting more, of course. Yeah. But that is true for a reason. And I think I've been in bands where we've played and it's like, all right, we gotta play like 12 songs. Like we're the opening band. Like there are 2 more acts after us, and you don't want to exhaust an audience that's going to be there for 3 hours. So be conscious of that. Play shorter sets. That's my favorites. Like I've done 20-minute sets. You go in 20 minutes, you kill it over 4 songs, and that's all people are going to remember. If you're the opener, give them your best 20 minutes. Get off the stage and bask in it, because that's what's going to happen.
That's like George Costanza in Seinfeld leaving
sure
at his high note.
I'm out.
Okay. And then everyone loves him.
Yeah.
But he usually stays too long and they get mad at him.
I don't remember the joke that he told that he left on a high note. I think it was at Kruger in Industrial Smoothing, though, that he did it.
He just left the meeting, and they're like laughing. Yeah. We love George. It's true though. To go off the stage having people saying one more song compared to like, all right, who's next? Like, come on.
Yep. Yep. And you conscious of where you are, of course. Like if you're the opener, you're the middle. It is an opportunity. Opening is tough for a lot of ways. Like one, you're not getting paid like anything if you're if you're on the road and you're opening even for like a big legacy act, and I think a lot of people don't realize that is like the band is maybe making $200 for the night, even though you're playing to like 2,000 people. A lot of times you're on the bill as the opener, which is a whole other thing that we can get into with touring and stuff. But like, that doesn't mean like you still have to keep like it trying for way. Like there are ways that you can take advantage of that slot and have it be a success story for you, of course. But I don't think the way to do that is to just play all of your material. It's have an idea and putting sets together. Like there's an art to that. What are you going to open with? What are you going to play in the middle? How are you going to ride the wave of energy? What's your longest song? What's your shortest? What's a great little just you can prolong the set with like just a little interlude or something. Like what can you do differently just with the music as opposed to even props and stuff, because when you're starting out as a band or a performer, you're not going to have the money for all of the pyrotechnics and things like that. So just what can you do with your music to make it a really, really awesome set?
In your defense, I did set you up with that question asking about like no-nos. So I did sort of put you in the grouchy old man direction.
I'll get there on my own, I think, a lot of times, but which I've been trying to be a lot better about, of course. But I think that and I say it just as like a cautionary thing, like these are things that I've done, and you learn pretty quickly. And it's like you can still keep doing those things, and there are people that maybe are, of course, going to love the hour-long set, but like, are they related to you? That's maybe a pretty good sign, and or are they your best friends and things like that? It's just like give me your best stuff. Yeah,
I think the one about the mistakes is huge, because I think that's actually a great opportunity for you as a performer to kind of let some personality out and a connection with the audience. You're there for live music. Part of the thrill is something could go wrong.
Laugh it off.
It's an adventure.
Laugh it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all like I've seen that. Yeah. I've been in the audience where it's happened, and the artist laughed it off, and I'm like, that's so endearing, and all of a sudden everybody in the room, because there's such a stiff vibe a lot of times. It's not like at a comedy show or something like that. I think there's a stiff vibe, I think, at comedy shows, because I don't want the comic to talk to me and heckle me and like absolutely destroy me.
Hey, you in row 3.
One of the worst experiences of my life was my family was visiting in New York, and my mom, if you're in Times Square, there's all these barkers where their job is to sell like tickets to like the smallest comedy club ever. And I left my mom alone for 30 seconds in Times Square, and I turned around, and she's the sweetest person ever from rural Saskatchewan. And she's talking to one of these barkers, and he's handing her tickets, and it was like the slow-mo, like, no. But sure enough, she bought tickets to this comedy show, and we're there. And my aunt had traveled with her partner, and she had a drink or two that day, and started talking to the comics and like wanted to joke with them. And I was sitting front row with her, and it was, oh man, I'm getting PTSD just thinking about this moment, because it was like heckling, and she was trying jokes back at him, and I was like, no, like don't do that, please. So I can't believe I got on this tangent. I know it's not what we were talking on, but like, number one, I think don't talk to a comic if you're in a comedy club. And but I think in music, like you don't have to talk to the musician, but like you can be loose, and it's a journey together, and just be comfortable in the mistakes, because when those happen, you can laugh about them with the artist, and the artist is laughing, and it's like it just breaks down that like tension of this is high art, and we all have to like experience it in a certain way. Just makes, I think, for a more memorable evening or afternoon or whenever you're playing, of course.
Yeah, for me, I think one of the big lessons I picked up on, and this came from listening back to like recordings of shows we did, is that your set is the whole time you're on the stage. You're performing the whole time. Like in between songs is not like time off where like, oh, we're not playing right now. So, I mean, it's not dead time. That has to be part of the show and really like thoughtfully considered, because it can be, oh man, I mean, back in the day when we were first playing in bands, my friends and I, like, we didn't even have guitar tuners, and we were in a band with 3 guitars and a bass player and drums.
Oh no!
And we'd have to tune to each other, you know. And some of the downtime was just longer than the songs.
Wait! Like, wait! I'm like, somebody's still tuning on the peg. Somebody's counting the tune. It's like, no, wait! Like, yeah, it's been there. Yeah,
come here, give me your guitar. Like, it can be painful, and I think we did learn a bit to, like, okay, we need to kind of like tactfully do this, figure out a way. Of course, tuning pedals was like the best thing ever. We'll finally got their hands on like those Boss tunings that would bypass your guitar while you're actually tuning.
And you can leave them running too. I mean, even just the headstock tuners, I was a fan of those for a little while until, like, I lost 1 billion of them on tour. So I finally did buy a pedal tuner. But yeah, they also like the banter game in between, like a really great front person just learning to be comfortable in front of an audience. That's so important. And it's so challenging too. Like, man.
We had a bad banter. We were traveling and touring we just went down the East Coast, for like 2 weeks. And we were in like North Carolina, and we were actually playing with a friend's band and our band. We toured together, and they killed it. We had a few people in the crowd. It was small, but it was just a bar, and they were really into it. They were into us when we started playing, and one of the guys in the band like told a joke that was slightly insensitive and really struck a nerve with like the group that was really into us. They got pissed off. They had already bought CDs from the other band and like threw them down on the floor and left. And just like poor judgment call, and oh man, it was just like, wow, we just like totally killed it in the bad way. We killed the vibe, So it can be a real delicate thing, I think we really tried to work on like what we were going to be doing between songs after that to really consider it part of the performance. Yeah,
and with the people that you're with on tour, like not just your band.
We ruined it for our friends' bands, honestly. Like, they did a great job, and they had sold CDs, and we probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah,
but we ruined it.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah,
no other way around it.
Nah.
It's just no.
I guess that happens sometimes, if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. We got a little too loose, I think.
Yep, you can get too comfortable. I've put my foot in my mouth, but never in, I think, that situation in like a professional setting like that. But I'm thinking back to because I've been on tour with a lot of different bands, like the band I was in with a bunch of different bands, and both headlining and opening and things like that. And it's just like you get to know the people you're with, the other crews really well, and you just want to. As much fun as it is to be funny and try and be funny and things like that, it's just like, got to be respectful, of course, of everybody that you're working with, the crew, the sound, the engineers, like everybody. And because everybody's working really hard. And when you're day 30 on a tour or something, and you haven't seen your family in forever, and you're just like out there, it's fun, but it's not always like the best. So you just got to, have empathy and respect other people's time, which I'm not saying like it wasn't. I wasn't there for this blunder, of course, but I've definitely been at the crossroads. Like, do I make the joke or do I just not make the joke? And like, it's not a big deal, and I can just continue on with my life comfortably. I'm gonna take that side of things. More often. I
recommend that, especially you're out of town. You don't know who you're dealing with.
You don't know where you are. Like I growing up in Canada, I was certainly like blissfully unaware. We have our own very serious issues, of course, but like there are definitely like, there's so many different people that you can bother just in different cities, like from in the same state and stuff. So just be cool. Just treat everybody like you want to be treated. There's another classic cliche, but it holds true. It holds true in music, of course, too.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned, but learning everyone that's working, learning their names, being polite to them.
Yeah.
Because there's like those cliches about like the sound person that doesn't care and doesn't do the job. But a lot of times you can fix that by just learning their name, thanking them.
Yeah.
In the set, saying,
thank them on stage.
Yeah. Hey, let's give it up for so-and-so behind the board, making everything sound great tonight for us. Even if they're not. We've had our sound improve, poor sound improve by thanking them, but sincerely. And we've also, I've had the same thing where there was like a lack of respect shown towards the sound guy. Like, can you please turn this up, please? That's gonna cause problems. Or they're like pointing at the, like doing these like crazy gestures. That's insulting, so that's something to be aware of. And you can really, they have the ultimate power.
Yes.
Oh, you don't like me, huh? Let's see let's just boost all of the this frequency.
The sound person is the keeper of the set for sure. It's like, if you want it to be, and I don't think there's like, even, I'm sure there are people out there that would like sewer a set if they really got pushed that far to the brink. But I have not come across the vindictive sound person. I have come across the stereotypical, like from moment one, they're very angry, like even at the beginning of your sound check. But you do have to take it upon yourself. Like, how am I going to handle this? And I've seen it both ways. Just like, kill them with kindness, man. Like, just like, oh, it sounds great. Can I, like, in sound check is the time to ask for everything, of course, and making sure that that's dialed in. But do it in a way that's like, man, like polite, like that. I have seen the other way as well, and it just makes it so uncomfortable. Like it and it's very cringy too. It's like, I'm not getting what I need. Like, this is, just, we'll get there. That's why you're doing sound check. Like you'll get it to a place that is comfortable, and it might not be perfect. It might not be perfect. Like if you don't have your own crew, you're rolling in with somebody that's working with a new band every single night. Like you gotta give them a break. So it's a tough job.
It is a tough job.
I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, it's new bands, new sounds, new desires, new preferences. And a lot of times you're already there for 7 hours with 15 other bands playing. And, I've a lot of appreciation for that. But you have to. Everybody, though. I mean, just the person at the door, the bartender, whoever's there. It only helps because sometimes you don't even realize that one person that you checked in at the door with is the owner of the place, or knows the people down the road that can get you another gig later, and
or is a booker, or has connections to very prominent bookers who are putting together a festival, and they're like, your band might be growing, but it's like, oh, actually, I have firsthand knowledge that working with them might not be great. Like, especially though now, like when shows are starting to come back, any service industry thing, like, good God, like they have had the worst of it, the absolute worst of it through the pandemic, of course. So like, dude, when you're going back and into venues, and like, I think we're just gonna have to be that much more cautious and conscious of everybody's emotions and feelings of what a hellscape it's been for this extended period of time, and how challenging it's been. Like, that's a lot of income lost for everybody, and a lot of uncertainty for everybody, and a lot of it's not going to be perfect when you're getting back into venues slowly opening up and won't be at full capacity and things like that. And just also dealing with patrons that are going to be stressed and maybe angry that they have to mask up or things like that. Like there's all kinds of heat just flying around now. So yeah, I think more than ever, you got to be courteous and professional, and just your day-to-day life, man. Yeah, like,
this is
everybody just needs to be given a break.
Yeah. But it's true in those situations, and no one needs more enemies especially if you're trying to do something like music where no one has to give a damn, that no one owes you anything.
No.
You want to have friends. You want to have people that will say, yeah, they're actually really nice to work with. They came in, they were on time, they did what they had to do. They got off stage quick. They did everything right. They made my job easy.
Yep. Exactly.
Well, let's see. I appreciate you mentioned that. That's the professionalism part. Just being like kind to people is important.
Yeah, it has to be said sometimes though. So yeah.
So I know you're about to do a move and set up the studio again.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans? Anything in the works you're excited about?
Musically, Mihei and I have on and off just been writing music, and I think that has stalled out a lot because I can be as optimistic as I want about like I can work out of a closet and like it's no problem, and I'll just have my MIDI keyboard set up and write and stuff, and that's been true in some cases. Like I'll just go somewhere and sit in nature with a guitar or whatever and play and maybe come up with some ideas. But the actual making of music has certainly been stalled because I have been living out of it feels like a suitcase for like 9 months, basically. We lived in Los Angeles for 5 years, and it just felt like, the pandemic was going to be particularly bad in the fall of 2020. And we weren't tied into anything where we were living. So it's like, if we can get out, let's do that. And we'd always kind of had an eye for Oregon. I wasn't like at the beginning of the 2020, I wasn't like, I need to leave Los Angeles, but that definitely everything that's going on pushed that forward, and like also like just trying to afford a house in LA is quite the challenge for sure. So, Oregon was just kind of in the mix, and we had spent a little time in Eugene. I'd seen a lot of Oregon on tour. Growing up, we used to go to Vancouver Island a lot, my family, and so the Pacific Northwest is unbelievable. I am such a huge fan of everything about it, the nature. So many of the people just very kind and things like that. So we picked Eugene and ended up finding a place, and there's a lot. Yeah, I mean, first time homeowners is a super exciting thing for sure, but also just the idea of having a space again where we put all of our gear and everything's ready to go. Like, I mean, your space, folks can't see it, but that's the space to aspire to right now. Like you got lights dialed in, like all the synths are ready to go the moment that you have an idea. And that's incredibly, incredibly important. I think all of the courses that we've done at Soundfly, there's one lesson we have a course called Songwriting for Producers that's literally just like getting your space ready to create. And it's one that for me, it's like such a simple thing. Like it just goes over your head. But I'm most excited to do that, to continue to work. Now, that being said, I have worked on some stuff a little bit. My buddy of mine, Joey Leffitz, who's a drummer, just a phenomenal drummer and composer. He and I are working on a beat tape, and I used to have a hip hop band called Tiger Speak, and it was like full on horn section, and we'd do all this like jazz and hip hop focused tracks, but that was more just compositional based. I wasn't like making beats, and I always kind of had an eye to, I just want to make a beat tape. I think it would be super fun to go through that experience. So he and I have done that, and we're working on it, and we've got some great guests on it. There's no date slated for release at all, of course. It's just a passion project right now and something I'm putting together. And then some other little things. A friend of mine, Ari Stidham, who's an actor and musician and still out of LA. He and I have kind of put together some stuff, and he's doing all the songwriting. I'm doing all the production and things like that. So some stuff in the works, of course, but I'd be lying if I say I wasn't stalled out by my approach to it through the pandemic. Because you hear a lot of people getting a lot of things done and records and things like that. I've been fortunate to be able to work through the whole pandemic at Soundfly, and I think a lot of that's been because of feeling the ability to do that when a lot of there's been a lot of economic strife for so many people, particularly in the music industry. I've kind of poured myself into that more than anything because I feel very fortunate to have been able to work. So I'll have time to work on my own music. I'm taking a week off as soon as we get up there and get settled in the house. And a lot of that time, once everything gets squared away, which there's a lot to do, as I'm finding out, of course, firsthand. But no, that's the thing. Is like it's never. I'm like that with instruments when there's a little scratch on it. I'm like, oh man, I got to figure like. I'm gonna be like that with a home, like, and I can't like, oh, that shingle's a little bit off. I better do something like. So I'm gonna have to learn to not be so OCD about that stuff. But no, I'm excited to get everything set up and get into a space where I can have a free flow of ideas and capture that stuff and do it. Eugene is like a pretty inspiring place in particular. Like I love nature. Who doesn't? You can walk 5 minutes from your doorstep and be like on this amazing hike and see deer and all things like that. So I'm excited to kind of be in the wilderness a little bit more and have that influence the stuff I'm making.
That's awesome. Sounds great. Sounds like a lot of fun. A lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
You make a great point. I mean, to harken back to us talking about getting started with stuff, as hard as it is to get started, if there's a hiccup where now you got to hook things up, connect wires, why isn't this making sound? That's another huge hurdle that can just kill it. You know,
zaps the idea.
Yeah. If you're fortunate enough to be inspired when you're getting to work, that can be enough to lose it. So it is really helpful to just have kind of a go spot where you can just get to it. Incredibly helpful for me, yeah. When it's not all organized, and it is kind of what you see is nice right now, but I do have a little clutter action happening behind me. It can be a damper to what you're trying to do.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, that's cool, man. So we should send people to soundfly.com, right? Have them check that out.
That's the place. That's the place. Yeah, check it out.
There's a lot of great stuff. And like we said, like in the courses, there are lots of instructors that I know are delivering excellent material. So that, like, you know, I don't even need to see the courses to know. Just those names are impressive. And the blog is great too. If people just want to read up on like some just helpful stuff, inspiring stuff, and little tips here and there, I think it's a great feature of the site. That's Flypaper.
Yep.
And themes and variations wherever you get your podcasts.
That's where it's all happening, man. Yeah. This was awesome. And yeah, be on the lookout for Brian's episode, September 22nd, because that's a fun one. I'm really excited for this one to come out for sure. And we'll have to have you back. I mean, that was
I'd love to.
Just a great chat. So we'll definitely find another theme down the road and get out there. But yeah, soundfly.com, a lot of awesome courses coming out that I can't talk about right now, but some pretty incredible artists that we're going to be working with here. As you know, all of the artists that we mentioned earlier. We're just so grateful to have worked with them and trying to bring their vision to a course that folks would want to check out and learn. So, yeah, that's the gist. Check it out.
That's awesome stuff. Yeah. And, maybe when we do that episode again, we'll do another one here, because this has been a lot of fun.
That'd be awesome. It'd be awesome.
It'd be great to hear how you're doing with the move and everything, what you're up to.
Yeah. Hopefully it's going well. Hopefully there's not like clutter and boxes everywhere the next time we talk, but I think it'll be okay.
It's part of the journey, the hiccups and the bumps, but you know, that as long as you know that, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool, Carter. Thanks so much for stopping by. And thank you everyone for listening. Hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. If you've liked what you've heard, please stop by your local podcast provider and leave us a nice review. And if you want to support the podcast, you can do so with our Patreon at patreon.com/BrianFunk. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.